Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fiona. And we're right on time, and that was very interesting. I'm glad things are starting to things are starting to function now. So I'll hand over now to for the next session, and Miranda will be moderating this next session with Carolyn Gent, all the way from UK. So over to you, Miranda.
Thanks very much, Philip. So really delighted that we've got Carolyn Gent joining us today, although it is the middle of the night for her. Carolyn has been working for many, many years in sub-Saharan Africa, as she'll talk to us, working on stopping child witchcraft accusations. So I'm going to just hand over to you, Carolyn, to give a bit of background about your work, about the training materials that you've developed, and the experiences that you've had with them that you think might resonate for Papua New Guinea, which is also, a very Christian context. So that will be appropriate given the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Miranda. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm really glad that I can be with you virtually, although I would so love to have been there with you in person. But we've at SCWA, my organization that I'm chair of, we are very interested in all the work that's going on in PNG. It resonates very closely with what we're doing, and we've learned a lot from you, and we're really grateful for the wisdom and the experience that you bring to this issue, because as Angela said, it's really urgent that something happens to stop this violence against women, children, and men, wherever that may happen. If you'll excuse me, I'm actually going to read my presentation because it is 3 o'clock in the morning here, and I don't think I can string a sentence together any other way. So if you'll excuse me, I'm going to do that. But one thing I would just wonder if it's possible, I'm seeing references to resources in the chat, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be possible to share some of those resources. I've just put in there the ones from SCWA, and you're more than welcome to use those in any way that is useful to you. They're free to download from our website, and you're more than welcome to use those if they're applicable in your context. So just to say that SCWA is a group of organizations and individuals that's come together to provide a specifically Christian response to the phenomenon of witchcraft accusations against children. As Miranda said, we work primarily in sub-Saharan African nations, and our model of change and our training resources have been developed in partnership with people on the ground over a period of 5 years to challenge and equip the leaders of grassroots churches to tackle the issue, although they have, as I said, also proven effective in schools and with other community leaders. So all of our work is research-based, like yours. It's contextualized for the places where we're working, and it's founded on the authority of the Bible because that resonates in these nations as authoritative and compelling. What we do is we enable people to realign their own thinking and behavior in the light of biblical values using a highly participative training tool that we've used, which is called the Heart of the Matter. And we start from where the participants are. It's a modular resource, and it's cause accusations. In the where we've done that research, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm getting feedback or if everyone's getting feedback. It's based on relationships. We spend time building relationships, and then we work from those relationships outwards. So when creating the Heart of the Matter, we worked very closely with a group of African theologians and anthropologists who are experts on the phenomenon of child witch accusations. And that enabled us to address misappropriation and misunderstanding of the Bible in the resource. So as I said, it's a modular resource. It has 7 modules. The first one is God's loving heart for children. And we find that that has a very profound impact. When people start to see children differently, then they become less likely to find it acceptable to cause them harm. The second module is on personal responsibility and scapegoating. The third one is normal child development and the impact of trauma. The fourth is on spiritual powers, because we find that fear is a very big driver of accusations. The fifth one is on the role of pastors. The sixth is the role of the community. And the seventh is on the law and children's rights. And that includes guidance on establishing and implementing a child protection policy and a process. We've also developed 2 further resources. One's called Sickness, Health and Healing. And we've already heard about the connection between ill health and death and accusations. And the second one is called Mental Health Matters, because we are aware of a very close relationship between mental illness and becoming targeted as with accusations of witchcraft. Those 2 can be used as standalone resources, or they work as further modules for the heart of the matter. And I would just say that our approach is tried and tested, and it's proven successful in bringing lasting and dynamic change for the better. We have done follow-up research with a year where we did immediate impact, and then a year on. And there are 2 reports on our website that you can find that explain the impact and the kinds of ways that people put the training into action after receiving it. So if I just go on, and I'll just give you a bit of context for the issue of perpetrators, which is what I'm wanting to talk about now. We've heard a lot about the role of the courts and the challenges around that. I'm coming at this from a slightly different perspective, because we're coming across the issue of how do you deal with perpetrators without closing down the dialogue. That's a big issue for us. So our primary focus is on prevention. We want to stop the accusations happening in the first place. And we've learned that that requires constructive, respectful engagement with church leaders, who are people of huge influence in their communities. So as I said, we build relationship with the local church leaders, and they go on, we train them, and they go on to train other church leaders, their own congregations and other congregations, and the wider community. So we recognize that church leaders and so-called prophets and prayer rooms are implicated in the phenomenon of child witch accusations. Sometimes they label children as witches, sometimes they confirm that children are witches, and they can conduct elaborate and harmful rituals to so-called deliver children from what they call a witchcraft spirit or a witchcraft entity. But we also recognize that the church is a crucial part of the solution to the problem. And that's why it's so important to engage with faith leaders and to work with them to correct any wrong theology which is being used to justify those behaviors. We also need to provide practical guidance on how to respond when a child is brought to them accused of being a witch. We also seek to help church leaders to model love and acceptance towards accused children, and to actively advocate for them, and to make the churches themselves safe places for children where they're loved and nurtured and protected. The issue for us is that we and those who use our materials can't know in advance whether any of the participants on a particular training have been involved in accusing children or in affirming accusations or other harmful behaviours. Because of the biblical nature of the training, we have found that participants will sometimes confess to some sort of involvement during the course of the training, and they'll often repent of it and will commit to positive change for the better. And that means to immediately cease any such involvement and actively to become an advocate for children. So far, those confessions are usually just very general. I haven't treated children as I should have done or as Jesus taught us to. And I do need to make it clear that our materials do stress that the interests of children are paramount and that there are consequences for perpetrators. So that we talk about the need to seek justice for the child concerned, even in the face of indifference or collusion from the authorities. That's all spelt out in the materials. But the context where we're working are nations or areas of nations where child witch accusations are normalized. That is a fundamental issue that we have. There is no reliable rule of law in some of these nations, and it's particularly so in areas of the Democratic Republic of Congo and in Nigeria, where there are significant epicenters for child witch accusations. We find that the police and the judicial authorities very frequently believe that children are witches as well, and that they should be punished or delivered. And it takes huge persistence and huge resources to hold perpetrators to account through the judicial system. Even when people are brought to trial, they can usually buy their way out, and that's a further issue. As I said in the chat, we are aware of some successes in bringing cases to trial, but that's not what we as SCWA generally do. That's not our area of expertise. So, the challenge. Well, our aim, as I said, is to prevent the accusations in the first place. What we want to do is stop the harm that might be being done through churches because of wrong theology or an abusive position. And we want to enlist the churches as agents of lasting change for the better in their wider communities. We've found, and as I said, there are reports on our website that kind of show the follow-up to the trainings that we've been giving and our partners have been giving on the ground. When churches and church leaders champion children and promote child protection and teach what the Bible actually says about those issues, radical change happens for the better, and you can change a whole community and turn the thinking of a whole community so that it is no longer acceptable to harm children in the way that has previously been happening. We have found that those whose thinking is changed, either through the training and the teaching, and also through the example of church leaders, where they're modeling good practice, those people are often the most powerful and passionate advocates for children in the communities where they're working. So those are the aims. The challenge in all of this for us, and with our type of approach, we painstakingly build relationships of trust with the churches that we're working with. So the challenge is, how can we or our associates on the ground deal with perpetrators who confess to causing harm without breaking that relationship of trust, given that what we're trying to do is change the thinking of the whole community. Second challenge, if potential participants believe that we're trying to incriminate them, will it become impossible to get church leaders or faith leaders to engage? Challenge number 2. Challenge number 3, other organizations have learnt from experience, and we have learnt from them, that a hostile, confrontational approach does not work in changing thinking. It simply makes the problem more hidden and off limits in terms of discussion. Rather, we have found that it's essential to actually engage with faith leaders in order to tackle the issue. So that's challenge number 3. Challenge number 4, and this is expressed in kind of Christian language, how do we prevent the language of forgiveness and grace from compromising the need for justice? That's challenge number 4. So just leave those with you for a moment. Our approach is evolving as we gain experience, and it is most definitely a work in progress. It's something that's kind of come up during the course of what we've been doing. And I would really love to hear from anyone who's actually tackled that issue or those issues and found a way to have trust, but with no collusion, and forgiveness, but not injustice. How have other people managed to hold perpetrators to account without shutting down the conversation? That's the question. And I would love to hear from anyone who's got any thoughts or ideas on that. I'm just going to give you a couple of stories. One of them was about the synergies that have come up, where these have happened organically, where the community, the church leaders, the trainers, the police, the local authorities have started to work together, particularly in the prayer rooms around Goma. And that has been a very exciting development, and it's one which clearly has potential to start to address some of these issues. But I just want to read you one story. This is an account of somebody who and how big the change can be in the thinking and why that is so precious. And we don't want to lose that in the fight for justice.
Carolyn, we've got time for one story probably.
Yeah, just the one, okay? Yeah. So I'll do the story of Pastor Faustin, I think, or Pastor Joshua. As Pastor Faustin and I pick our way, this is from Kinshasa in the capital city of Congo. As Pastor Faustin and I pick our way through the all-pervading filth and rubbish that makes any walk through the commune of Mombele a challenge, we discuss the tragic story of the two boys that we are on our way to visit. 8 months ago, Deborah, one of the workers from EPED, which is a church-led organization with which we've been working in Kinshasa, heard about the case of Clarence and Trésor, two cousins, one 15, one 13, who were spending their nights sleeping in a broken down, abandoned house because they were accused of being witches. They had previously been living with their father and stepmother, but when the stepmother's 3-year-old daughter died, she suspected Clarence and Trésor of being witches and of causing the child's death. She was also unable to conceive another baby, and she believed that the boys had cursed her. She went to a so-called prophet who confirmed that the boys were witches. After that, she made the boys' life unbearable, refusing to feed them and denying them even drinking water. She mistreated them in every way that she could. The boys' uncle was a colonel in the army. When he visited one day, he forced the boys to be held in iron chains so that their wrists were manacled to their ankles. They were kept like that for 9 hours until community members reported the situation to the local police. The police arrested the uncle, but he used his influence to evade going to prison. The frightened boys decided that now was the time to find somewhere to live where they could stay in peace. And that's when they found the broken, derelict house. On discovering them, Deborah reported their case to EPED, who asked if any of the pastors in their network would take the children in. Pastor Joshua volunteered to care for the boys, since when they have gone from strength to strength. Pastor Faustin leads me down a labyrinth of narrow alleys, lined with stalls selling everything from cooked chicken and fresh fish to great piles of wood and charcoal. Finally, we arrive at a pair of red iron gates, and having knocked, let ourselves in. "We're in here," calls out Pastor Joshua. He and the boys are sitting in the simple structure that serves as Pastor Joshua's church building. Clarence and Trésor confidently stand up to shake our hands. They're both very small for their ages, but appear to be at ease in our company. "You should have seen them when they first arrived," confides Pastor Joshua. "They were so timid and very thin, but over the past few months they have made good friends with the children in the church and many of the adults in the church who have welcomed them. Now they take part in all of the church activities and clubs and are completely at home. They are both extremely intelligent and are always in the top 3 at all subjects at their school. Pastor Joshua has obviously grown to really love the boys. They have blessed me so much and bring me joy, but also God seems to be blessing all aspects of my life and ministry too." Pastor Joshua did not always think this way. In fact, he strongly believed that children were witches and wouldn't have anything to do with EPED. However, his heart has now radically changed. "I want you to know that I am the fruit of your teaching," he confides. 5 years ago, I attended a training workshop in child protection that EPED ran. It really captivated my heart, and since then I have worked with EPED for the well-being of children at risk. I am caring for these boys as a result of that teaching. EPED are working hard to try to create better relationships between their boys and their family members, but the stepmother remains hard-hearted. However, the boys see their father at their school because he teaches there, and he is open to building a better relationship with them. Amazingly, the boys have chosen to forgive their father for abandoning them and their stepmother for mistreating them. A beautiful young woman quietly joins us, and as she does so, the faces of the boys light up. This is Deborah, who continues to visit Clarence and Trésor 3 times a week. They obviously adore her. Deborah has played an important part in helping to bring them inner healing through her care and counselling. They are a delight to visit, she smiles. Really, they give me great joy. I feel happy when I'm with them, and I love my work. Deborah not only visits children like Clarence and Trésor, but also children on the streets twice a week. Her sister Christelle volunteers with EPED as one of their nurses, and the girl's father, Pastor Amongo, is now on EPED's management committee. As the pastor of a so-called revivalist church, he has turned from being someone who believed that children could be witches to now combating these beliefs, thanks to the training and influence of EPED. So that's a story of how big the change can be for the better. But what do we do about the fact that the children need justice too? So I'm really interested in anybody's thoughts and feelings about that.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. We've got we can go a few minutes over for some for any input that anybody else would like to contribute. I wanted to also reflect on this issue of children as the victims of accusations of sorcery in Papua New Guinea. We've been looking at our research, and it seems that this could possibly be an emerging trend that children are starting to be directly accused, often as a result of one of their parents being accused. So it's almost considered to be something that is handed down, and in that way becomes an intergenerational problem. So I know that this is something that has occurred in Africa, whereas many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, the people who were accused traditionally were elderly, but in recent times it's become children, often, as Carolyn suggested in that example, where there is a step family and the new stepmother is jealous or is not welcoming of the children for some reason, and we've certainly seen that in some cases in Papua New Guinea. So that's something that's obviously very concerning for us all. I just wanted to add in that little reflection. But does anybody have any reflections for Carolyn, particularly on that question about how do you deal with perpetrators? It looks like Lily has got something to say.
Hello, everybody. We had a case of a family being accused of sorcery, but they said in a form of young teenagers. Is a sorcerer passed on that to another family member, and there were a lot of distractions. And then they took the young men that were accused of distributing the sorcery. They have sent them to one of the church member from the North Waki, so that he can say the prayer and then remove that evil spirit out of them. So, and then there were a lot of the immediate family were chased out of the home. There were a lot of damages and things like that we've been they faced. So yes, we did it. We did this case involving young children, and also when we did a more in-depth check on it and tried to find out, and we brought them into the mediation table, and then the parents of the young men that were accused of, they were said that they were the one that gave them the sorcery. They didn't want the young men to come, but we were very persistent to bring the young men into the mediation, and we excluded all the family members, and we talked to them, put the young men together. We found out that that wasn't true. There was some hidden agenda behind it. That were not true. That were not true. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. Yeah, those mediations are so important that you conduct. Any other reflections before we hand over to the next panel? Maybe if not, I can encourage people to get in touch with Carolyn I can tell you from experience, she's incredibly generous in terms of sharing resources and insights. And there is a lot that we here in Papua New Guinea, or I'm not in Papua New Guinea, but researching in Papua New Guinea, can really learn from the work that is happening in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'd just like to say thank you so much, Carolyn, for joining us. And handing over now to William, who is going to be convening the next panel on the very difficult topic of reintegration following SARV.